Hey, I'm hanging out now with Melanie Zhou. She is a recent graduate from ThunderRidge High School, but once a Grizzly, always a Grizzly, right?
That is correct. Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today, Nate. I am so appreciative to be part of this effort to spread positivity in our community. And, these past few months have been difficult for every high school senior, I would say. But, I think in this time of turmoil that we're seeing, a lot of our students are speaking up and speaking out. And I think that is something that is giving me a lot of hope and positivity during this time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure we were able to keep up was the student voice because it's not easy when everybody is isolated in their own homes. So it's been great having folks like you on our show and the Castleview graduates we had last week. So again, thank you for being with us. And can you tell us a little bit about what those last few months were like for you as you were finishing up your career at ThunderRidge?
Yeah, definitely. So I am part of the IB program at ThunderRidge High School, which has been a great academic and intellectual experience for me in high school. And the last few months of being in that have been slightly difficult with new adaptive remote learning. And I think our teachers did a really great job of trying to make sure that we felt supported during the process. And lucky for me, our IB exams actually got canceled this year. So it was based on all the previous classwork we had done throughout the past 2 years in the program. So that brought a little compassion, I think, to the situation for a lot of students. And I think I was also an AP student as well. And there were some issues taking the College Board exams this year, which I'm sure many students had experienced. But, I think the past few months of remote learning really emphasize the need to reach out to people and build relationships even when it's harder because you don't see them face to face. So I was able to leave ThunderRidge with strong relationships with my teachers, even if I hadn't really established them before remote learning. And I was able to identify friends that were, there for you and you can depend on even in situations such as COVID-19. So there are a lot of positives that came out of being in the remote learning situation. And I know Douglas County called my class resilient and ready. And I think that was a really, really apt way of putting kind of my generation, because I think it wasn't easy to be resilient in this situation. And none of us were ready, but I think in several years we can look back on this and say we actually did that, and it wasn't easy and it was difficult, but we were able to overcome it. And we are more compassionate and more connected to our peers and our friends because of it.
That's awesome. And you spoke about your peers, you spoke about the teachers really coming together for their students. What did you learn about yourself over the last few months?
I think for me, you learn a lot about what you're interested in and, how to be self-motivated. In high school, I think the biggest lesson someone can learn is how to be an advocate for yourself and how to become an advocate for your education. And I think when you have remote learning where it's less direct and you have less face-to-face interaction with people telling you what to do or, how to do something, you have to end up being, a pioneer of your own education, what you want to learn. So during my time in quarantine or quarantine social distancing remote learning, I really found out what I'm passionate about, which I think is neuroengineering, which is kind of stemming from my work in mental health. So right now I have a virtual internship with a lab at CU Denver to explore that passion of mine and, doing a lot of reading and advocating for a lot of social issues that are occurring in our community right now. And, I think I learned from myself that you have to take things one step forward, and it's kind of like you can't make a molehill into a huge mountain sometimes. You just have to take it one day at a time. And I think anyone is capable of that if you contextualize your experiences and realize that you're not alone. And that applies to mental health and that applies to becoming an independent learner. So, those are important life lessons I think I'll carry for the rest of my career.
Well, it sounds like you're an incredibly impressive person. And we knew that before we invited you on the show. You talked about advocacy, you talked about mental health. You are one of the founders of the nonprofit Oasis Mental Health. You've come before our Board of Education to present and to pitch the program. You've been running it for, I think, the last 2 years now at ThunderRidge High School. Can you tell me a little bit, as you're moving on, what's going to become of the program?
Yeah, so Oasis is one of the most instrumental experiences I've had in my life. And, it stemmed from an experience for me when I was younger of having some mental health difficulties, but coming from a traditionally conservative Asian culture, it wasn't necessarily accepted to talk about mental health. So when our friend passed away from suicide our sophomore year, it became really important for us to advocate for mental health in our district, especially to make it a priority for other students as well as administrators and teachers in the building. And that is something that we want to continue for our careers in college and our next steps forward. My dream is to see an Oasis room in every public high school in Douglas County and then every public high school across Colorado. And next year, we are actually set to open an Oasis room at Douglas County High School as well as STEM High School. So I'm very excited to see how that process will unfold. And something we learned in the last 2 years of building the Oasis room is, every school population is very unique. So the Oasis room adapts to the needs of that building. And it's been amazing to work with different students and advocates in those buildings who can really advocate for what their community needs. And we're actually building a chapter model for Oasis as well. So students will be able to have almost a club or a group functioning and overseeing the Oasis room within their school, as well as attending pitches and, entrepreneurship events within Colorado, because for us, that was something that was really important in getting our start off the ground. So when Mia, the co-founder of Oasis, and I head off to college, we are still going to be actively involved in Oasis and empowering other high school students to be mental health advocates in Douglas County and our community.
That's incredible. So it's safe to say that you're going to stay engaged with the Douglas County community, even though you're going to be in California next year.
Yes, definitely. And I think, it's important to be engaged in education at the secondary level and as well K through 12 education, because I think really it's the key to shaping kind of a new generation of leaders and their informed perspectives. Last night I spoke at the Board of Education meeting. Even though I'm a recent high school graduate, I thought it was important to still voice my concerns for what's going on and, put our thoughts out there. And I think I've spent so many years in the Douglas County School District system, and I've never felt anything but support from my teachers and my administrators. But I definitely feel that, with student input, there can be a lot of great changes that can sweep our district and make us a better community for a lot of students and more representative of a lot of views. So I want to continue being able to advocate for that in mental health and all of the other things that we are considering and dealing with in today's society.
I think that's great. And I think that raises a good point that just because you graduate from a high school doesn't mean that you necessarily leave the community. So it's really refreshing to see that you're motivated to stay connected, not only to ThunderRidge, but, to Douglas County as a whole. I did hint at it a little bit. I said you're going on to California from here. Can you tell us a little bit about what your future plans entail and what's next for you?
Yeah, so in the fall, I will be attending Stanford University in California, and I am planning on majoring in engineering and entrepreneurship. I'm leaning toward biomechanical engineering. I mentioned earlier that I was really fascinated in kind of the technical aspects of mental health. I've done a lot of social entrepreneurship work and advocacy work about mental health, but I think a lot of the progress we'll see in the next 20 to 50 years will come from new technology that can treat mental health, because right now a lot of psychologists describe it as, an inexact science, and it's, a bunch of trial and error. So if we can utilize technology, which is, the language of the future, to apply to something so complex, then we might be able to provide a lot of alternatives and support for students and peers who are struggling right now. So I am really interested in doing research that focuses on new technology in that way, but also learning to be an advocate. On my college campus, I'm going to try to bring an Oasis room to Stanford. I think a lot of high pressure schools like that will benefit from, a place where students can just decompress and realize and develop a self-care routine. So mental health is always going to be a big part of my life and a big part of my story that I will continue advocating to the rest of the world.
Well, you continue to showcase why you're such an impressive graduate from Douglas County, and we're thrilled that you're going out to spread that positivity to more of the world. So thank you for staying connected, and thank you for being a positive influence in the world. And as a leader, as you just stated, you want to kind of be in that leadership role at Stanford. What advice would you have for students that have just gone through this with you, but might be going into high school next year, or might be entering their senior year next year? As you look back on that career at ThunderRidge, what advice would you have for those students?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice is learn to be an advocate for yourself and for your education. I think, each one of us has really unique experiences, unique interests, and those experiences may not necessarily have an opportunity waiting for you. So you have to learn how to create your own opportunity. And, a lot of people, when we started Oasis, or when we speak at Board of Education meetings or start pitching, they commend us on our bravery or our courage. And I personally think that bravery and courage in that way of speaking up is a learned skill. And it's a learned skill that you can develop with your teachers and with your educators, because when you stand up for yourself, you learn to stand up for what you believe in. And I think that is the best way to create a path in high school or your senior year that is most fulfilling and most, successful for you. Because I think when you're able to advocate for not only yourself, but for your community, you start realizing, your role as a citizen in kind of a larger community environment and what you can do, while also developing what you're interested in, what you want to study, while accessing and creating new opportunities and leaving a legacy for your community. So I think that's my biggest advice, is to be an advocate for yourself. And that's something that you'll probably have to do in college as well, when you meet professors, in huge lecture halls, and you want to stand out, but you want help. Being able to advocate for yourself will be less scary. And then, in the workforce, I think it's important for people to make sure that even if you are underrepresented in a specific field, that's something that I think I will face in my future as a person of color, especially a girl in STEM. So being able to identify and speak up in a respectful way and make sure that your ideas are being voiced is going to be really important, and I think really, really contributive to social progress as well.
Well, I think you're a great example that student voices can be heard, and you can do something very constructive and positive with them. So thank you for everything you've done for ThunderRidge, everything you've done for the Douglas County School District community, and everything that you've done just to be that example for our students and even our staff. We've been enamored with the work that you guys have done with Oasis. So thank you so much, and best of luck to you on that next step in your journey, Melanie.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.